Coming up, we are diving into the world of Indigenous athletics, from a soccer star who is the focus of a mini-doc to an Oglala Lakota football player sharing lessons from the NFL. Plus, a Native-led arts organization is making big changes. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Across the nation, college students are raising their voices in support of Palestine, including many Indigenous students. Just one example is at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where students held a day-long protest at the student union.
Because as an Indigenous woman, I identify with a lot of the issues that Palestine is facing right now, and I just wanted to show that I stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine, and I believe in them getting their land back.
Students told ICT they see similarities in the plight of Palestinian people who consider themselves to be victims of colonization, genocide, and violence that Indigenous people have endured for centuries. Many protesters at UNL are demanding that the college stop investing in businesses tied to Israel. In Alaska, we're monitoring a bill passed by the state Senate that would increase support for disaster relief. If passed in the House, it would raise the maximum state relief amount from $21,000 to $50,000, giving Alaskans more substantial help during times of crisis. Alaska's unique geography exposes its residents to many natural hazards like earthquakes, wildfires, and landslides. According to bill sponsor Senator Jesse Keel, the legislation addresses critical gaps in aid for state-only disasters. In Texas, college students say they are feeling the impact of Senate Bill 17's ban on DEI programs. ICT's Paris Wise explains what that means, and here's a UT Austin student's perspective.
In Texas, Senate Bill 17 has banned diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at public colleges and universities. The law became effective January 1st of 2024 and states all hiring practices must be colorblind and sex-neutral. However, this has not only caused job loss, but has left diverse student groups on their own, including the Native American and Indigenous collective at UT Austin. Co-director Raven Price Smith tells ICT how this has affected their group.
We were under the Multicultural Engagement Center, which basically advised us. We had actual employees advising our student org and helping us with our events and members and everything. And even with preparing for SB 17, the center, they changed their image, but on January 1st, they closed the center down completely. And so we lost our funding from that, and we also lost our advisors. And so basically coming into the semester, all of our officers and me, we basically were trying to work to have our org survive this huge change.
Despite this hurting students' mental health, they are taking back their power by having a powwow on their own terms.
Actually, last year we had it on campus, and they weren't trying to work with us at all. They were putting a lot of rules like no vendors at all, and that we couldn't invite the public, even though it was sponsored by a department. And there was just a lot of rules, and obviously they weren't trying to work with us for our powwow last year, but we still had a really good powwow and a lot of guests. And then this year we decided to move it off campus so that they can't push all those rules. And it was a lot bigger, and it was really good. We just wanted to have this powwow and just show our culture and not try to hide any part of ourselves because of this bill.
The lack of support from the university has only brought in more support from their communities. And now they have a message of their own to other groups facing these challenges.
I would just say to keep pushing and just keep doing whatever your org is doing. Don't let the university try to diminish whatever you're working on.
Paris Wise, ICT News.
Madison Hammond is a soccer star and the focus of this next mini documentary. It shares a rare picture of her life behind the scenes, focusing on mental health, identity, and family. She is the first Native American player in the National Women's Soccer League. This film was directed by Kyle Bell and produced by Illuminative and Reno Productions.
This is home. We protect home.
Madison Hammond, she's a defender for Angel City FC.
Hi, I'm on the team.
Great tactical defending.
First Native American to play in the NWSL.
The first Native American.
The first and only player that is Indigenous.
I didn't even know I was the first Native player in the NWSL.
And I'm just Madison.
I started playing soccer in Albuquerque.
She was around 5 years old.
I played on an all-boys team where I found my competitive spirit. I wanted to be better than the boys.
She started to really separate herself.
I got my first recruiting email when I was in 8th grade going into my freshman year.
It was amazing.
This past season I was traded from Seattle to LA.
You know, girl from Albuquerque, playing with my idols, but then also having an ownership group led by Natalie Portman.
This sport has given me so much and has also been my biggest enemy.
And now you're 1v1 with Hammond, who she closes way too late.
But I think that's mostly because of myself.
What's been like the biggest lesson you think you've learned this year? Thank God for therapy.
It started out almost exactly how I wanted it to. I came to LA, I proved I could play, and I was getting a lot of playing time. And almost on a dime, it changed, and I could not pay someone to get me off the bench. It felt like this weird juxtaposition of being a part of the first season of Angel City, and everyone's really excited about it, and then you also not feeling like you're a part of it because you're not playing. All of your mistakes feel like they weigh 10,000 pounds.
Let's go, cutting all the way through.
As you can see the miscommunication between the two center backs of Angel City.
My psyche and my mental health just kind of took a nosedive. When that starts happening, you just lose touch with reality. Like you feel like your body is floating above the ground and you can't get your feet just settled. My vision would get so small. It would be like I could only see out of 2 like quarter-sized holes, and everything else around it was just black. And I'd never gone through that, and I'd been playing the sport for 20 years.
We didn't know anything. For me as a parent, I was like, God, I'm gonna make a mistake. I'm gonna guide the wrong way.
There are days where if I miss a pass, I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone's gonna think I'm a fraud. Everyone's gonna think that the only reason that I'm here is because everyone's excited they have the first Native American.
The pressures of living in existence sort of in mainstream culture. You play predominantly white sport, as did I.
I think that there are just a lot of preconceived notions and stereotypes on what it means to be Native, on what it means to be Black. Just that feeling of trying to fit in, trying to be someone I wasn't, getting lost along the way. But then when you come back home and you go to your little pueblo, 25 miles north of Albuquerque, people just knowing who you are and where you've started.
I always describe this as capital H home.
We're really glad You're home.
I was raised by an army of women. I never felt like I went without. Particularly me, my mom, and my sister have this unyielding and unrelenting obsession and love for each other that it doesn't matter whether it's a good time, a bad time. All of my memories growing up have one of them in it.
They just carried me and bigged me up and have been my biggest hype people.
As I go into my 4th year as a pro, it's not rocket science, and it feels like rocket science a lot, and that's what feels like chaos.
I just asked her, I said, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to play soccer. I said, then don't give up.
When I play confident and when I play free, I don't think that there is going to be much that's going to stop me.
Hey, kumara, nice diaksho. Hey, kumara, you hot, you are jum shahati dikatalo. And that's my prayer for you. It's my prayer for all of us.
I'm here because of what I can do. I'm good enough to leave more of an imprint than just being the first Native American to play in the NWSL. It is not a question of if I'm capable. I think it is more so a question of when. I'm finally just gonna do the damn thing. I'm here to tell the story of me.
We give a special thank you to Illuminative for allowing us to share that film. We'll be right back.
Mai maka'u I kahana, maka'u I kamoloa. Mai maka'u I kahana, maka'u I kamoloa. Don't be lazy. Mai maka'u I kahana, maka'u I kamoloa. Don't fear work, fear laziness.
Jim Warren is a familiar name for sports fans in Indian country, with many cheering him on to victory during his college and professional football days. Last year, he was inducted into the North American Indigenous Sports Hall of Fame. But as he told our Stuart Huntington, more important to him than the accolades from the field is his work for the Oyate, for his people.
It was a great honor to get that notice that I was included as an inductee to the North American Indigenous Athletic Hall of Fame. And that was quite an honor, particularly when I read some of the bios of the other athletes that are included. And it was such an honor to be included with those Indigenous athletes, but it was also awesome to learn the stories of so many other Native people that have succeeded in athletics and move forward in other careers as a result of what they learned as athletes.
Tell us a little bit about your athletic career.
Well, I was always a big kid, so right now I'm 6'7", 296 as of yesterday, so I've lost 70 pounds, so I know 296 still sounds heavy, but for me, I'm skinny. But as a result of being a big kid, everyone had that expectation that I'd be an athlete. And unfortunately, when you're young and you're oversized, you're not developed enough to be able to handle a man-sized body as a child. So young, I was very slow and weak, and you know, people looked at me as a disappointment, particularly my freshman year when I couldn't even do a push-up. So I was pushed around as a big kid my freshman year in football, but I had some great mentors, coaches, Coach Cook and Coach McBurney. I'll always hold them in high regard as mentors who got me in the weight room and trained me and gave me that confidence. And then suddenly my sophomore year, I started to dominate and then worked my way into All-State and All-American. And it was a wonderful experience being a 4-sport athlete in high school.
And Jim, you went on to play in college.
Yeah, when I had success at Tempe High School in Arizona, and then I was going to ASU games with my dad since 2nd grade. So Dad had the family season tickets, so I grew up idolizing Arizona State football players. I had their newspaper clippings on my wall, and I would dream that someday I would be one of those Sun Devils on the field. So when I got my scholarship to Arizona State and running on that field for the first time in my uniform, I could hardly breathe because of the excitement of being there. And then getting to play, and my senior year finishing off with the Rose Bowl, And then 10 days after that, being invited to the Hula Bowl for All-American All-Stars. That was a wonderful way to finish my career at Arizona State. And being able to get drafted that same year, 1987 was a good year for me. We started off with Rose Bowl championship, then we won the Hula Bowl as All-Stars. Then I got drafted by Cincinnati Bengals, and then shortly after that, I got my degree at Arizona State. So that was a wonderful personal experience that time, because I didn't only just succeed athletically, I achieved my degree academically.
Jim, Sports Illustrated did a story once and focused on one particular detail.
Yeah, when I was in the pros, this was actually in 1991 when I was playing with New York, New Jersey Knights with the World League, the first year of NFL Europe. And so we played all over the world, and I got a lot of attention because I was the only player that had long hair. Because after college, I decided in the pros and NFL, I started growing my hair long, which I started getting some flack from some of the NFL coaches, but because I was indigenous, because I was Lakota, I said, I'm representing my people. And so they let me have that long hair when they had made other players cut their hair. So as an indigenous athlete, at least I had that level of knowledge that, you know, the hair meant something more than just a look for a football player. And with the Sports Illustrated article, they titled it Urban Indian, and they focused on my waist-length hair flowing from my helmet. And I didn't have waist-length hair, but, you know, they just concentrated on the hair. And then fortunately, I was able to get in some of the information as a young advocate as to who we are as Native people. So I'm glad at a young age I was still able to address some of the stereotypes, not only in athletics, but in general society.
That's a big part of your life today, spreading the message.
Yeah, and that's a great segue, because after being a professional athlete, there's a big transition time. A lot of guys have struggled, and I did too, you know, trying to go, okay, I'm no longer the star athlete, who am I? Then I realized I'm Oglala Lakota. I have an opportunity to use this platform not only with my degree at the bachelor's level, but fortunately having parents that supported me and advocated for me to get my master's degree. And as a result of getting my master's, suddenly I had job opportunities to create programs for Indian country addressing disability and public health disparities. And I've been doing that for 30 years at various universities. And it's been a very rewarding, I wouldn't really call it a job, but you know, it's a mission, I think, a responsibility that I was taught from a young age as a Lakota is, what are you going to do for your people? So I represented as an athlete and was honored just recently as an athlete, but recognized as an academic and an advocate, as well as being able to be a teacher through the medium of film. With my filmmaking, I'm able to teach through film.
Jim, do you have a particular message to a young Native athlete right now, dreaming big?
Yeah, I remember I was usually the only Native on my team, so a lot of Pacific Islanders would adopt me, but there's more and more of us I see on TV on different sports, not only football, but a variety of sports. So I feel Black Elk was right when he said it would take 7 generations to heal our circle, our sacred hoop after Wounded Knee. That's the kids of today. And you're seeing them not only perform in the world of athletics, but academically, young advocates. And I firmly believe, and I've been saying this for years, that a member of the 7th generation will be president of this United States. I believe it, and it could be one of you.
Jim Warren, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, and keep up the good work at Indian Country. Palami Awashte.
Visiting with family and relatives will help us from feeling lonely or socially isolated. COVID-19 changed everything, like our ancestors who survived war, famine, and epidemics. Our elders had to make sacrifices too. The more we are socially connected with our family and community, the less health problems we will have and the longer we will live. We need to stay active to keep our spirits alive. Remember, you are not alone. Connected together, we will stand strong. For more information on elder, isolation, or caregiver resources, go to connectedindigenousElders.org.
A Native-led organization that cultivates and advances Indigenous arts and culture has recently made a big change. Our Daniel Herrera Carbajal spoke with curator and executive director Candace Hopkins about what's in store.
Recently, the Forge Project has switched to a nonprofit model. I asked Executive Director and Chief Curator Candace Hopkins what this means for the organization.
It means great things. Essentially, it means that we can have an impact long into the future. We started in April of 2021 as a non-income earning LLC, simply because that meant that we could start work immediately. We started our fellowship that year. We started hiring staff and, doing even work on the land that year in collaboration with Sky High Farm. Really, the transition to being not-for-profit means that we can enact a different model of Indigenous governance. We have an Indigenous Steering Council, including both cultural leaders, members from Stockbridge-Munsee community who are close collaborators of ours. We are on Mohican land, as well as amazing cultural leaders like Jeffrey Gibson, who's the first Indigenous artist to represent the United States at the Venice Biennale in a solo exhibition. So for us, this transition, it really makes a lot of sense. It allows us to solidify a lot of ideas that we've had. And importantly, it allows us to bring on new partners to support not only us, but the work of Native culture more broadly.
So, an Indigenous Steering Council, what is it and what does it do?
Yeah, we're really excited about this. So it's a 7-member council. We very deliberately wanted to use not only the term council, but the role council versus committee. I think for a lot of Native folks and a lot of Native folks watching, there's been a lot of advisory committees that have been formed, over the last few years and even before. But sometimes those advisory committees don't necessarily feel like you have a lot of decision-making power. So the Indigenous Steering Council really provides high-level vision and direction for Forge, and they actually sit above the board. So no matter who's on our governance board, no matter who are trustees who are helping, really raise funds for the sustainability of the organization, we will always have Indigenous leadership. And the way that we developed that was also looking at models of, historic Indigenous governance, tribal governance, but the ways that we've, really made decisions over millennia in some ways. And a lot of that is based on trust, consensus building, but also listening to those who have a lot of experience and advice in the areas that you really want to lead. So this is another way that we can really invest in Native leadership now, but also Native leadership in the future. So this includes Jasmine Neosh, who's a young legal scholar who's Menominee, and Jasmine was one of the first Forge Fellows. That includes Peter Jemison, and Pete Jemison has been a Seneca cultural leader, almost his entire life. Started the first cultural center there in his homelands on the site of an ancient village. But he's also an amazing artist, and he's been working as an artist since the 1960s. So it's amazing to have his leadership. It includes Jolene Rickard, who's a professor at Cornell University. And Jolene is an artist, a curator, a scholar, and someone who's been really leading in these ideas of art and culture for a long time. It also includes Monique Tyndall, and Monique is Director of Cultural Affairs at Stockbridge-Munsee Community. Monique has been a close collaborator on ours as we've developed a memorandum of understanding with Stockbridge-Munsee Community. In the kind of art and museum world, there's been a lot of discourse in the last few years about decolonization. And then with that, I think this kind of trend, let's say, of museums adopting land acknowledgements and also, in some cases, more collaborative relationships with Native communities. For us, we feel really strongly that those relationships need to be also diplomatic in nature. So there's, shared intent, there's shared values, and we can really work together in that. And another member of the steering council is Sky Hopinka, who most recently was awarded one of what's called the MacArthur Genius Awards. He's an amazing filmmaker. He's Ho-Chunk and Lucenio. And he was also one of our first fellows, as well as Jeffrey Gibson, who I mentioned earlier. And we're led by Carrie Swanson, who's the director of an amazing organization called Indigenous Screen Office in Canada that awards up to $13 million of grants annually to Indigenous filmmakers. So really, it's a lot of folks who've laid a lot of groundwork, for us as Native makers in this world.
How does the Indigenous Steering Council affirm self-determination?
Yeah, because there are leaders, that's one way that we could enact what we feel is a true model of Indigenous governance. We will always be led by the steering council. They have 3-year terms. They also have 2 seats that are on the board of directors. So they really set the high level vision and intent for us. And I feel like with the transition to being a 501c3, it means that we'll be forever Indigenous led. And for us, that's the true enactment of self-determination.
For ICT News, Daniel Herrera Carbajal.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.